Here we go. Hi guys, my name's Jen, and today I'm here with Ben from Taskrabbit. Ben, who the hell are you?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Texara from Taskrabbit. I am our customer acquisition manager focusing on the SEM channel. I've been here for a year now. World for about 12 years now, on and off. So I started off working at a very small boutique agency back in the mid-2000s, and from there went in-house to the University of Phoenix, where I was at for several years, and then on to another agency, 3Q Digital. And then I went to the e-commerce side of the world at art.com, where I was at for a few years. And like I said, I've been at Taskrabbit for the last year. I've worked with a variety of different clients, just from lead generation to e-commerce, to email signups, to trying to capture lifetime value. So I've sort of seen a lot of different clients, a lot of different business models. And yeah, I've been just 12 years strong now.
Wow, that's incredible. And how have you seen, I guess, over that time, even metrics like the lifetime values and, CACs and all the fun stuff, how have you seen that evolve over time in this sophistication?
Yeah, what's interesting, I think, is over time, we've been sort of asked to try to segment out data more and more. So we're always trying to get more granular as what is the value of this click? What is the value of this, ultimately, this conversion? But I think in terms of the desire to get more granular, that's become more sophisticated, and there's been more tools around that. I still think what seems interesting is, at the end of the day, the ballpark has gotten a little bit shorter, but those kind of numbers of attribution and determining that kind of lifetime value is still very ballpark.
Yeah.
So while it's gotten a little bit better in the ballpark, it's still very difficult to say, this click drove a conversion, but really, what's our lifetime value? How is that really baking out longer term? It's still sort of a best guess, especially between like different channels. So we know that maybe email or display heavy lifting in terms of prospecting and acquisition, but as it filters down, it's still really difficult to determine, like, A contributed to B, contributed to C, and so on. But again, I think different tools that have been in the market. Also, I think people have become more savvy in how to like break out this data and how to attribute things. So I think that's become a little bit more savvy. But I think at the end of the day, we're still best guesstimating, really, like that kind of hand holding, that handshake.
Yeah, fair enough. And what sort of tools were you using to measure this way back in the day, 12 whole years ago versus today, right?
I would say, 12 years ago was a lot of scrap paper and just kind of determining based on different formulas and just, maybe this is actually contributing X amount of percent and this is contributing a Y amount of, like, revenue and value. But over the time, I think Google Analytics has definitely caught up a lot in terms of the way they sort of measure that multi-channel attribution. And I think we've seen a lot of savvier marketers in the space as well. I think analytics teams have definitely gotten more savvy. You see, like, companies have now dedicated a lot of resources to analytics, whereas before, I think it was a lot of companies saying, I've heard of this kind of marketing. I've heard that it does really well for certain clients. Let's invest in just kind of building up that team. Like, here's somebody with some experience. But it's always been kind of holding those kind of feet to the fire and saying, all right, well, what actually is the value of this? When we're kind of talking about these different channels, like, do we need these different channels? Do we need SEM versus SEO? Can we actually get the same value for free? So you see, like, the tools like, your Google Analytics, even your Google Ads, Google AdWords has become better at sort of splicing out those kind of data points and those different channels that touch customers. But it's definitely come a long way. But again, I think at the end of the day, it's still a slightly bit of a black box of, we hope to get this right. We hope to get it in the ballpark, but it's gotten 100%. Some of the tools that search engine marketers use, like those third-party bidding tools, like your Marins and Kenshoes and DoubleClicks, have come a long way as well. Whereas before, it was really just more of a data warehouse. You could put all your data in there and maybe make some large-scale bin changes across different accounts, different campaigns and whatnot. But those tools as well have become a little bit more sophisticated on valuing, certain channels, or also identifying better uses of your top of the funnel versus lower funnel.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess then, what you started with way back versus today, if you were going to start again today with, you know, let's say Taskrabbit launches tomorrow, what are the things that you would do differently today to kind of get up and running a lot quicker, knowing what you do now?
Well, I think that's a good question, because I think getting up and running isn't as difficult, or it really hasn't changed as much as it has then.
Yeah.
I do remember then you would send your keywords and campaign structure to a Google rep and say, you know, please launch this, because there really wasn't the capability. There really wasn't an AdWords editor really yet. So you would physically send off keywords and bids and say, can you please get this up? And they'd say, we'll try to have it up in 48 hours. And so it was a much more like, I guess in some ways you would deal with a lot more people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think getting things up haven't really changed. So I would probably take the same approach of, you know, let's throw things kind of at the wall, see what sticks, kind of make optimizations as you go there. But I think one of the things I would sort of do differently is, instead of spending so much time in the weeds, you know, keyword by keyword, you know, what is the best bid for this keyword? You know, how can we best utilize this, you know, campaign to ad group, to keyword to ad, and that I would probably focus less on the weeds and more of just saying, you know, this marketplace is two-sided. What am I doing on the client side that could be affecting the tasker side, or the you know, the people who are actually out in the field doing that kind of work? If it's a Uber or Lyft, you know, we're driving all this acquisition here, but like, how is that actually affecting the clients, or vice versa? So I think sort of having more of a handshake with the other side of the marketplace and saying, you know, I see a lot of potential for, let's say, plumbers, people who have a lot of tools to do plumbing, but we're not necessarily stacking ourselves with, when we're kind of going out recruiting different taskers with that skill set. So it's kind of more of saying, instead of focusing so much on keyword growth, you know, building out your long tail or head terms, taking some time to say, what actually is the marketplace dictating, and how can we pivot off of that to actually make it useful for us?
Yeah, that's great. And with that, then, I guess that first step from, I guess, launch, let's call it MVP stage even, to then scaling, you know, once you're a couple of years in, what are the different sophistication, I guess, or sophisticated decisions that you, or tools or structures that you need to do to make sure that you can scale?
Yeah, I think, I mean, to that point, not to sort of negate the process of scaling out your keyword set, because it is a huge win for your book of business. But, you know, I think Google's come a long way in this case. So they have different tools like, you know, your DSA, for example, where just based on your web content, they can actually build out or sort of recommend users the best ads for you to be on. So that actually really helps build a long tail strategy there. There's also a lot of work you can do in just examining the actual queries and sort of categories your users are searching for that actually match to your ads. So some of them are irrelevant, most of them are, but there is like those nuggets where you say, you know what, there's a lot of demand here, we should build this here too. Google Trends has come a long way in terms of helping, I think, advertisers figure out seasonality kind of trends. So that's been a big win. And then also there's a lot of different strategies. There's your query harvesting strategy, for example, where you have your broad matches, your broad match modifieds that are driving a lot of traffic. You sort of take those converters, you put them into auction as exact matches, and kind of just keep building that way. So you're always kind of staying lean, excuse me, but also at the same time building out a fuller and fuller inventory of keywords and just categories and just ways users can interact with your business.
Yep, perfect. And what, I mean, obviously there's a lot of competition. It's Google. Who do you see doing it well, or that you guys look to for inspiration or tricks or?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think we want to get to the place where we are more of like a, I suppose, like just, you know, you're looking for a ride, you say, it's not a brand you're looking for. You just say, I need an Uber.
Right.
In our case, would be like the same thing.
Yeah.
You're looking around your house, it's dirty, you need it clean, you say, I need a Taskrabbit. And what we do is several different types of categories, but, you know, I think, you know, we just need this service, this concept, this kind of brand to come into our house and make our everyday life easier. And so I can sort of do away with my to-dos and have that type of service in my life. Is kind of I think the sort of culture we're trying to get users accommodated with.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if there's really any kind of particular brand or competitor that we're kind of trying to model ourselves after.
maybe even in
but
a industry, right? Like that same,
exactly.
yeah.
I think what we're trying to do is really kind of be category kings in that sense. You know, really try to create our own category that we can thrive under.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess then when you're thinking about building those categories, it might not, is it mostly online? Sorry, is it predominantly online versus, I guess, where you guys probably first started? I remember hearing about that there was, every single TaskRabbit got interviewed, whether it was over Skype or face to face, and it was really that suburb by suburb expansion. How has that evolved over time and with technology and I guess the different models?
Yeah, I think with us, it's really been, over time, really kind of starting off with more of an online presence, kind of starting off on the, the tasker side first, trying to build, acquire people who are willing to do the work. And then really over time, I think it's been, obviously associating them with clients, but how they're sort of interacting has become less of, I need to go on my computer and look for this. It's more of like, people just now, walking down the street being like, oh, I just reminded of something. I need to find that right now. So it's all just app based, all mobile based, whether it be mobile web or through like the actual app, the native app. That's really where I think the industry has shifted, as well as our company is now, again, like when you're just sort of thinking, you just need that kind of immediate gratification or that immediate service of, where is that person available and when, to come fix my cabinets or, unclog my drain, things like that. So it's become much more, and really the search engine marketing as well. It's just become such more of a mobile focused industry, which I don't think has been surprising for anyone really in marketing. It's just that shift from, your computer to laptop to mobile has been really the big kind of
shift.
Yeah, as it's more portable. Yeah, exactly. This that big shift. So
yeah, and I guess then from you guys being one of the first in market, in a pretty big way, creating that education piece through your advertising must have been pretty difficult. Going, let this stranger in your home. This is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is like that trust and safety aspect to it. Like, what is this? How does this work? So even today, I still see a lot of queries. How does Taskrabbit work? Like, is Taskrabbit safe? So I think it's as the marketplace kind of shifts and evolves, like people, not everyone, but people definitely feel like it's a much more of a something that they can just sort of rely on. That you can find someone to come to your house, and you do trust that vetted and background check process that these people are going to be okay. But I think obviously there's still examples where it's not the case. But that's still, I think, an evolving conversation, an evolving kind of handshake and trust between consumers and advertisers. Of we're going to send someone to your home. What does that really mean? How are you going to be protected? How are you going to be ensured that even that job's going to get taken care of? But I think you do see as a culture, we are becoming much more dependent on these kind of online services. It's just one of those things that we've kind of understood that it will be okay. It's the same thing with, I think, thinking about display ads. Even 5 years ago, people were still really weary of seeing display, but now it's just something like they interact a lot more with it in a much different when they did 5-10 years ago. So culture changes as marketplaces changes. It's just part of, I think, the handshake, like I mentioned, the handshake that's happening.
Yeah. And I guess as a whole ecosystem of hyperlocal marketplaces around the world, Andrew Chen, I'm not sure if you saw his, everyone reads his newsletters in the marketplace space about the evolution of marketplaces, becoming a more managed, curated experience. But it seems like, TaskRabbit was doing that from very early on. Have you found that you guys were ahead of the curve in that space?
I don't know if I would say we were ahead of the curve. I think what we did differently was that we did take time cultivating a culture, so that like your previous question, where security and the insurance, that things were going to sort of be, the job was going to be completed with a quality intent in mind, but also it'd be safe and reliable and also affordable, and that also we were taking care of both sides of the market. Clients would be safe and secure knowing that a job would get done, but also that taskers would be able to get a fair rate, and things were sort of being looked out for their end as well. So I think what this company did well was it did sort of take its time, not just to kind of go hyper growth from the beginning, but really kind of build the foundation of of that kind of culture where those things would sort of be ensured, and that as a client, it was going to be safe. As a tasker, you were also going to be ensured that it would be safe as well. So maybe at the gate, it wasn't just hyper acceleration and it wasn't sexiest thing in the world, but I think we've taken our time to really ensure that our cultures as a company were going to be reflected in the work that was being done, but also the people who are doing the work.
Yep, that makes sense. Because there are a lot of, I guess, around the world, very heavily funded startups who will go big and go home and not even think about the unit economics. Are they just spending where they need supply and just need demand, and how much are they willing to bid, and make sure the lifetime values are correct to their churn and CACs and whatnot. So
I think really just on an individual level too, is just what kind of culture is that kind of creating for the employees of the company, for the people who are, the third-party contractors, and for the clients as well. It's sort of like, I think we took our time in defining what all that meant.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit differently than the folks who are, kind of worrying about, self-driving cars, for example. I mean, it was much more of a different kind of process there.
Yeah. Awesome. And I guess within the team, your culture, by the sounds of it, is quite unique. Can you explain a bit about the team culture?
Yeah, I mean, I think we sort of thrive on a diverse culture, which means that you're not going to sort of hear a lot of groupthink. It's going to be a lot of different ideas. So we serve a very diverse group of taskers and clients. So that really should be reflected from the top down in terms of the employees. So I think it starts with backgrounds and a lot of diverse ways of thinking at how to address a problem, which is, I think, to this date really helped us a lot. It's a culture of transparency, a lot of openness, and honest feedback too, which maybe isn't want to hear, but something that
yes.
Again, and that's just I think some places might kind of hide that transparency from executives, but my time here, I've found that not to be the case. And I've also found the feedback has always been coming from a place of sincerity and also with a bottom line of helping improve the kind of move the needle, improve not just the business but people's career aspirations as well. So
yeah. And how do you keep evolving yourself and making sure that you're ahead of the curve? Do you read blogs, mentors, podcasts? What's your secret sauce?
Yeah, I mean, I like to stay on top of, definitely, I think it starts with kind of blogs. You have maybe a 5-10 minute window a day. You can just kind of catch up on what's search engine land talking about today, kind of what's the new test that's going on, and the more conferences you can kind of attend. And I think networking is always a huge thing too. Keep in touch with the folks you've worked with. They might not stay in one particular channel of marketing. They might kind of move around, but from that you can definitely learn a lot about different ways of approaching a problem and how they kind of tackle their channel. And can you apply any of that to your channel, or pass those kind of learnings along to your peer that you work with closely. So blogs, networking. I love to talk with my Google teams and just kind of keep challenging them. Hopefully they do the same for me, and kind of trying to push the envelope of saying this is what I'm seeing. What are some potential fixes? Let's just brainstorm. So a lot of communication, a lot of reading, but I think something that's always been very valuable to kind of keep the ball rolling, keep the momentum going forward. So
yeah, cool. And from that, I mean, you must see a lot of different things. What's been the biggest stuff up that you've tested?
Oh, the biggest what?
A stuff up as a mistake.
Oh, okay.
That you can say publicly.
Well, I think that there's been some kind of hiccups and just in the way search and display kind of interact, especially early on, where maybe it was just let's launch some display with the sense that it will have an impact on search. And I think that kind of goes back to that. How do you attribute those channels? You might need an uncomfortable amount of money to ask for to launch a display campaign that actually will impact some search. So unless you really have that kind of foundation of that kind of cross-channel attribution of saying X amount of dollars is we're anticipating going to help drive this much more kind of search, you could sort of find yourself in an uncomfortable situation where you spend a lot of money but not a lot of return. And then it's kind of hard to sort of say, well, we drove a lot of impressions, so we got our brand out there, but at the end of the day, what does that really mean? So I think there's been some hiccups around display and not maybe knowing how to properly align the two channels together.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of just some undervaluing of mobile in the beginning when it was at a time it was called enhanced campaigns. And there's this huge fear of saying, well, now we're going to take off that I want this to be mobile or non-mobile type of option. And now it's just going to be all one kind of ecosystem. There's a lot of fear around that. And I think a lot of people, advertisers, maybe were very conservative going into that, which maybe kind of hurt them out of the gate. So I think that there was some apprehension there. I wish kind of would have known that maybe the impact there wasn't as bad as a lot of people thought it was going to be. That was one instance of maybe being a little too conservative versus like just like a display piece just being kind of a little too wild and kind of believing the message there too much.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy to think about today though? Because displays just so it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And I think again, like kind of going back to the fence that 5-10 years ago, people just did not just trust those ads. They just didn't click on them. Whereas now, like that interaction is completely different. So.
Yep. Definitely. And those ad sets becoming a hell of a lot more intuitive or interactive and
absolutely. And it's so much more customized too, as it was before, where you really were just kind of throwing something at like just a really huge net. Yeah, I hope maybe something will stick. But you sort of did it under the guise of, well, at least we'll get our brand out there. That was kind of like, let's see what happens. But now it's like you can even customize that so much more. And there's so many different kind of channels, especially now with YouTube and their efforts around display as well. So it's really changing, obviously. But I think some of the big mistakes there is just not really knowing how to address the new kind of cool channel on the block. Like how do we really do this? Let's just do it without kind of doing the due diligence of like this is actually how we should do it and what we should be measuring. So
yeah, no, that's a fair call. And obviously in the last couple of years, we've had a lot of changes with data and privacy around the world, whether, the UK and the EU. I'm saying it separately now just in case. Not as stringent as GDPR, but in Australia, we had the data privacy laws come out as well. There's talk that GDPR or similar sort of standard is going to be coming out in the US. Have you guys thinking about any of this and any of your marketing strategies, or, how does it affect the business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a lot to do with, with acquisition, especially on the mobile side of things. So it's something that we're definitely thinking about and something that we've been working hard towards to, be compliant, but sort of do it in the right way and just make sure that we're kind of actually ahead of the curve. Because I think in our business, there's a lot of regulations that are going to be coming down the line as well.
Yep.
How are we actually defining people who work as taskers? Are they employees? Are they contractors? Like what sort of is this? So I think that what's nice is we've done a lot of hard work to sort of stay ahead of the potential changes that are coming. And
they're not necessarily bad things with data privacy. It makes sense, right?
Exactly. So really kind of staying in front of the game, because it does take a lot of changes to your site. It does require a lot of engineering work. So when I think about staying ahead of the curve, it's like anticipating what's going to be required and sort of just making sure that bandwidth, that talent pool is there to really kind of address it. And do it in the right way too. So
yeah, definitely. Which hopefully is a better outcome for your customers. They trust you more. They use you more. It's a better ecosystem for everyone.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there any startups around the world that you're seeing, whether it's marketplaces or not, that you really look to as some exciting things that are happening?
Well, I always, I sort of think in terms of whoever is kind of making things more automated and less nuanced is something that I'm always kind of attracted to. So, is there something where you're kind of taking more and more nuance out of the picture? I don't want to say like you're taking the middleman out of the picture, but you're sort of just making things a lot more interactive, a lot more intuitive for users. So any startup, I can't think of any now, but like any kind of startup or new technology or new tool or system that's kind of like utilizing that methodology or that way of thinking, I'm always definitely kind of drawn to that and seeing like, how can I use that? How can we integrate that with what we're doing on a day-to-day? And how can I make my day-to-day less nuanced, less kind of bogged down in the weeds, so I can find maybe some kind of higher level things to think about.
Cool. And I ask everyone this. It's a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah.
If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
You mean in terms of marketing?
It doesn't have to be startup or marketing related. Just You personally, if you could have a superpower.
Well, I think I don't know if it's a superpower, but if I had the ability to be like a competitive eater, I feel like I could really thrive in that.
You've
I'm always
usually picked the best one.
I enjoy hot dogs, and the more I could eat, if I could eat as much as Joey Chestnut, I would. But so I think that'd be one. Like I think a stronger gastrointestinal kind of situation would be good. In terms of marketing, if I was a better mind reader, if I could sort of understand customers' intent more, and I could sort of better align that with a user experience, that'd be a great marketing superpower to have. But the more food I can eat, I'd like that power. I want to try all the food. So
fair enough. Well, thank you very much for letting me interview you. I really appreciate it. That was awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, sorry, I've got to work out how to pause this recording. There you go. Stop recording.